Hi, welcome to Dark Horses. I am Danielle Garaycoechea.
And I'm Sabina Covo. I'm happy to be here with you, Dani. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. It was a crazy week, a lot of work coming into the summer, which it already feels like summer here in South Florida.
Of course it does. You go from a nice spring crisp to boiling hot.
Boiling hot. It's been boiling hot. Supposedly in Miami it was going to rain today, tomorrow. But then I looked at the weather and it's going to happen, I think, Sunday and Monday. Let's see. It changes by the minute.
Of course. Now, let's talk a little bit about you. You are an extremely successful woman. You have been in politics. You have a PR and consulting firm. You've been a journalist. You've been on political shows. You're the host of Hola Latinos. You're an author of 2 books and a mother. How do you juggle all of it?
It's been a journey. It's been a long time. Not in business, but a long professional career. I started young, I would say. I was in my second year of university, of college at FIU, and I started working at Telemundo. I was super lucky. There was an internship opportunity in the sales department, which had nothing to do with what I was studying to do, because I'm a writer. I didn't know at the time I was a TV person. I thought that I was going to be a print journalist. But I got that opportunity to come into Telemundo as a sales intern, research, imagine. So I was actually learning how to read ratings, how to do budgets. So it was super interesting. I was only 20 when I started. And from there, I went to the newscast. They employed me to do the traffic report. And it was so fun actually getting to know both worlds. So the business world and the TV newscast, daily breaking news world. And from there, it was just me. No dog at the time, no cat, no husband, no ex-husband. So what I did is that I actually had more time to work in radio and TV. And then 10 years after having kids, my 2 boys, I figured it out and I said, you know what, I want to see my boys grow. And that's where I founded the firm. And the rest of the things have just added up. It was from being myself on my own, to owning a dog, to having Pedro, my first one, to having Paulo, my second one. Then went through an unfortunate divorce. And my dog passed. My boys were growing. And I had to work daily breaking news. I ended up being the political TV host for the station at the time. I've worked for every other main stations, but the longest for NBC Telemundo. But I did Mega, I did Univision, did them all.
Now, being a political TV host, is that what kind of made you take the decision that you wanted to become a city commissioner? How did that come about?
That wasn't the reason why I wanted to become a city commissioner, no, but I knew about politics. But that came way after. I remarried. I had just had Carmen, my 4-year-old. So I have a 16-year-old, 12-year-old, and a 4-year-old girl, 2 boys and a girl. And I've been living in Miami probably my whole life. It's the city that has seen me probably grow as well, because I was raised between Barcelona and Cartagena, but I would come to Miami every summer for 3 months. My mom's family was here all the time in Coconut Grove, where I have this office. And I was seeing the way that Miami was developing in record-breaking speed, but I didn't think that the infrastructure for the city was the correct one, for the amount of people that were coming, for everything that happened. And being involved in politics, the commissioner that was currently sitting before I won, he ran for Congress, failed campaign, but he had to resign. And when he resigned, I got the opportunity to run. And my main reason was that I didn't think that Miami was going to grow appropriately to give the quality of life to my family. So that was my...
No, that makes sense. I mean, sometimes it's our
but
personal...
being a political reporter also helped.
I'm
but
sure.
Trust me, when you're
some
on the
part
other
of it.
side, but trust me, when you're a reporter, you're the one making the questions. When you're in the seat of an elected official,
You're receiving them.
You're receiving them. The amount of stress, the amount of corruption, the amount of attacks, political attacks. You have to be super thick-skinned.
Now, do you think having grown up in such diverse places, like you grew up in Colombia, you grew up in Barcelona, Spain, and you grew up coming here to Miami also, do you think that also affected you, made you the person that you are? Like, what are the things that you think that you got from the different places, or how did it change you?
I think that the three cities are actually super similar, but of course the cultures are different, even though that Miami is such a multicultural pod. But when I was in Barcelona, I only spoke Catalan at the time. Now I forgot it completely. If I'm watching a movie in Catalan, I can actually probably understand it, but that's it. And but being raised from, when you're a tiny kid to 8, that shapes a lot of your psychology and the way that you see the world. And for me, that happened in Europe. So when I went to Cartagena, which is such a small town, it's grown now, but not at the time, I didn't find Cartagena attractive. That's why I mean, beautiful beaches, all my family was there, but it wasn't Europe. So when I turned 17, I told my parents that I wanted to go to a big city for college. And Miami was a choice because my family lived here, and I'm the oldest daughter. So daddy didn't want to send me to New York, which was my first option. Even though I was accepted to Columbia University, but
Wow, congrats.
no, but it didn't happen.
Uh,
But I'm
unfortunately,
happy I went to FIU. FIU was a wonderful school, wonderful school. And at the time, I was an international student, so paying for college here was super expensive. And I think that that was why I ended up probably not at UM, but at FIU because of the pricing. It was absurd.
no,
Absurd.
completely understand. Now, you went through all of those experiences. You became a mother. You started the whole family, right? You got married. You had kids. Then you had the unfortunate part of having a divorce. You got remarried. I want to know if, because it happened to me. I'm also divorced and remarried, but I feel like sometimes, especially as Latin women, you get a little bit of, I would say, criticism from other women once you get divorced, and that you're putting so much time into your work, but it's also because you're trying to give your kids a life. Do you feel like you got any of that, or that people looked at you or judged you differently because of it?
I think people did judge me differently, but at the same time, I think I also judged myself differently. I felt that I was failing, that I was the black sheep of the family. I am also the eldest of every cousin in both families. So I had all the pressure from grandparents that were alive at the time. My two grandmothers were alive, from uncles, aunts, and then if you see my family, we're huge. I'm the only one that divorced. From like 20 something cousins on one side, but they're also younger. I'm not saying that they're gonna divorce.
You never know.
But yeah,
No, but I
society
do.
is an issue. Society is an issue.
Yeah, I do feel like it is. And especially if you're in business, I feel like they judge you even more, that, you're making a choice to be in business and that you're trying to be successful. But I also feel that that's also an example that you're giving your children, that you can do it. You don't have to be alone or, trying to find a way, but you give them an example of what it is to be successful and to continue to look for opportunities. Now, you've worn many hats, like we've said. What do you think are the qualities that have made you successful in all of them? And what have been the biggest challenges?
That's a really good question. I think the challenges come from trying to do it all and being such a perfectionist person that I was at a time, and not accepting that we're not perfect. That was a big challenge, because I wanted to be the best mom. That was my priority always. But at the same time, I wanted to be the best one in the newscast. I'm very competitive. And I think being competitive, now that I'm in my 40s, has stopped. Like, now I compete, but in different ways. I think in my 30s. Yeah, I run for
I don't
office.
think so. I hear about you playing paddle and tennis, and I don't think the competitiveness has left.
No, but I don't see it as important as before. I think that it came to a point where my ego was stronger. I think that now it's not about ego, and that's actually a big word that I've written about in my writings. The being successful, I think it's because I'm very perseverant. Like, I don't give up. And that's one of the things that I always tell not only women, but anyone. If you have a passion and you really want to get to that point where you feel that you're already successful, powerful, however you want to call it, you need to be perseverant. One day, recently, not that many years ago, I was still working for a TV station full time. It was actually 2020, 5 years ago. And I bumped into an elected official that I had covered his whole career. And he told me, "Oh my God, you're now the political reporter for Meg." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You know what? You are the most perseverant professional that I've ever seen because you always have a job. Even though you go from one station to the other, I was always employed. And every time that I left the station, thank God, it was because I was resigning because of something. I just had a baby or the schedule didn't work out. And then I think those are the two pieces that I go back and forth. Being perfectionist is a good thing. But if you are too strong on yourself, you would never be able to accept your mistakes. You would never be able to accept your failures. And failures are part of life. When I lost my re-election as city commissioner, I felt like a total failure. Because first of all, I wasn't supposed to. And no poll said it. No one was prepared for it. And it just happened. And sometimes things just happen. And you have to accept and you have to, like, it's like being born again from a situation and reinventing yourself. And that's when you have two options. You either stay at home, get depressed, or you say, you know what, I really need to make something else happen, because from the failure you need to learn.
I think that now that you mentioned that, that's part of something of being raised in different places, that you learn to accept, changes or challenges, adversity, versus sometimes, and it's bad to say this maybe, but growing up in the same place, in the same neighborhood with the same people, you're used to the familiarity of things and you don't like change. But in today's world, with everything changing constantly, the globalness of everything, I think having lived in different countries also makes it easier for you to understand, okay, I failed in this, time to get up, let's figure out what was wrong, or how do we improve, how do we move forward. And I think that's a big thing. And it ties back a little bit to your second book, which is how would you say el reloj de tu vida in English?
I don't know. I was talking
the watch
to
of your time.
It's funny because I was talking
your life
to
clock.
Your life clock. Who knows? I was talking to an editorial actually because I wanted to translate it. And I was proposing it to a literary agent. And I was trying to think, how do I call this book in English? In Spanish, it's El reloj de tu vida. And I would say your life clock would be the translation. The book is about...
The watch of your life, the time of your life?
I don't know. No,
Something
because
like
you need to use the object name.
Yeah.
There's a whole reason behind it.
Which brings me back to that. So I have both of your books. Both of the books have ties to watches and clocks. Why?
Okay, so my first book was an inspiration from a moment where my dad was really sick, and he has a collection of watches and clocks and everything that has a time in it. So when I was going through that situation, thank God my dad is okay now, I was just many times sitting there very impatient, very anxious about what he was going through, watching all these clocks and watches and everything else. And I started to understand the importance of time. Like, I thought I was going to lose him. So I was like, oh my God, you need to actually embrace time and live in the day to day. We're always running around and we sometimes don't even seem to notice little details. And right now with the technology, it's even worse. So I wrote a novel called La Casa de los Relojes. So I don't know if we could translate it to the house of clocks.
The watches or clocks, yeah.
Because in Spanish, there's no different term from reloj to
your watch
reloj.
to the clock, yeah.
Exactly, but in English there is. And it was a fiction book. It was, inspired by the situation, but everyone, was imagined by me. My second book, I write it after the failed re-election, and it's a nonfiction book for personal growth, specifically for women. And what I try to tell you is that we have Apple Watches, we have a Fitbit. I have a Fitbit that I take off every time. It tells you everything, at what time you wake up, at what time you go to bed, how do you feel, your heart rate. But one thing that this thing's gonna tell you is when is the right time for something that you're gonna do. something that comes from your heart, like your passion. So I did an investigation with different women, studies. The book is full documented, and what have I done all my life? Tell stories. I'm a storyteller. So what I did was that I told stories about women of every age and how they actually were able to not be scared and go after their passion. And that timing is not when you're in your 20s. It could be when you're a kid and you want to be child entrepreneur, or it could be when you're in your 70s. So it came out nice. I launched it at the Bogota Book Fair. I'm very happy with the book. It's on Amazon, and let's see what happens next. I need to translate both books, that for sure.
For sure, definitely. Now, what are some of your daily habits or mindsets that you use to keep yourself focused?
I like to wake up before everyone in my house.
So
However,
what,
I had
4
a
in the
cat.
morning?
5, but I have a cat and a dog that wait for me,
Ah,
and they cry because they want me to wake up. So I wake up with them. Even I go to a restroom, they're inside. They're like, they don't, a cat, white cat and a pug. I go downstairs. I like to exercise before everyone wakes up. I do it at home. I have a Peloton. And if I don't feel like doing the Peloton, I walk the dog for a little. And then I get prepared. But that moment of peace in the morning where I have time to do my checklist. Doing a checklist, it's on my book. If you wake up and you write on a piece of paper, I have this thing. Everything that you have to do during the day, just to take it off your mind, it brings back your creativity. And it takes anxiety off you. So I do it as well. And then I just go and follow my calendar. Remember, I've worked 20 years on TV and radio, and it's like with podcasts. Like, I'm obsessed with time, because on TV, if they tell you you need to tell the story in 1 minute 20 seconds, and you don't do that, you get caught. So it's the same in radio. So I'm used to timing, and I'm
so
obsessed.
see, time keeps following you everywhere. You have it in your books, you've got the clocks, you've got everything. So it's all about
right now,
time.
I have 10 watches. And I only wear this one. It's absurd. So I think that I have something with timing.
No, but it's good. And I do think, like, regardless of us having all this technology, like you mentioned about writing things down, I do think that there's a certain part of us as humans that when we write things down, we either focus on it, or like you said, it comes out of, that part of your brain so you can focus on other things. But I do feel like there's a big difference when you write things down versus when you put things into the computer and just leave it there as a to-do or on your phone. I don't feel the same connection. And I don't know if you have the same thing. Maybe it's as a woman because we think so many things that for me, seeing it visually, it makes it easier.
It makes it easier. On my book, you can find exercises to actually try and learn about yourself, about your personality, with quick questions. Like if I was interviewing you as a journalist, you can also find a test that you can do it online to find your personality archetype, which is super cool. And it has a lot of writing. And of course, I'm a writer, so I love to write. But I also think that I'm obsessed with scheduling. So I follow my schedule exactly like I have it. And one thing I hate is to change plans. But
Any room
things
for
happen.
errors?
But things happen. So I think that I've learned now that I'm older to just go with the flow a little bit more, and don't get attached to things that if something's not for you, it's not gonna happen.
That's true. I mean, a lot of times we obsess about things, and that's, I think, sometimes what hinders us in being more successful. And like you mentioned, sometimes the perfectionism, like even with, starting a podcast or writing a book or any of that, sometimes we think we're not there, we're not ready, I still need to learn a bit more, or I still need to figure out what I'm going to put, and figuring out that moment, taking that leap of faith for someone who is either young in college or is looking to change their career or looking for something, whether it's in politics, in PR, in media. What would be your biggest piece of advice for that person that's starting or wants to shift careers?
Buy my book. Okay, I'm kidding.
Well, we're going to need it in English, French. I can help you with those. After that,
Exactly. Find your passion. Find your passion. It's a process, but that's actually what I try or intend to do with my book. Help people find what really, really, really gives them happiness. That's the best way to shift career or to shift hats. I went from being a successful reporter, very successful reporter, to saying one day, I don't want to be in the news anymore one day, daily. So what I did was that I put all my energy in my public relations firm, my books, and here I am. And I still do TV, but not daily. It was a change. And don't tell me about politics. That's a huge change.
No, but change is always good, and we're always evolving, we're always changing. And I do feel that as women, we change a lot more because once we become mothers, that changes also our perspective. It changes our drive. It changes, what we want to do. But for me, one of the biggest things is trying not to lose yourself at the same time. So you have the hat that you wear as a mom, the hat that you wear as a wife, the hat that you wear in your business, and you are one of those people that's always looking for something else. You're studying, you're doing your master's, you're writing books.
Let's say I'm very creative, or super energetic.
I think it's more that.
But one or the other one.
One of the things that I really admire in you is that you have a business that you're always there. People know who you are, whether it's in media and PR and the politics, your books, but you also make time for your family. You're going to their games. You also play tennis, paddle, you dance flamenco. Like, finding that balance, I think, is big. It really is, especially nowadays. Sometimes we say, oh, you know what, I'll just do it tomorrow. But you wake up Sundays, 8 in the morning, and you're playing paddle.
Discipline and energy. I'm super energetic, like I said, so I need to keep myself busy, but I do. And I encourage everyone who's listening or watching to make time for your family, because that's the most precious time. And I think we're up with the time, Danny, because I hear the producer.
I think so. Please follow us on Spotify, on YouTube. We are super excited about our guests that are coming up and having, answer some questions for all of you of how to succeed, or what are some of our challenges, what we've done, what has been great, what hasn't. I mean, it's not a perfect roadmap. Everything always has, ups and downs.
It's true. Thank you, Danielle, for today's episode. And in the next episode, we're going to have an amazing guest. So please make sure you follow us. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.